So 3 opening comments before I start the somewhat formal, somewhat informal presentation. Probably most importantly, the passion in the room and the passion I experienced last night is why I'm here. And part of the reason I'm here is because Martha and Kim asked me to come, but also a colleague I worked with, Michelle Orr, who's on the advisory board and represents REI, asked me to come participate in something that has resonated for REI for quite some time, and many of you. And last night I had the pleasure of being at the dinner and saw a lot of the college students. And as mentioned, I have 2 kids already out of college, and they're both in retail. It's hard to believe I thought I could steer them away, but it just seems to be in our blood. And the passion that they have and the passion they saw last night is really exciting. So I'm really excited to be here and experience all the other conversations today. Number 2, my presentation is rich in some element of PowerPoint, but quite honestly, it's more for me than for you. I'm sure it'll be published because I think we hold on to all the presentations. I'm an ex-New Yorker. I talk relatively quickly, and I can get wound up pretty quickly about our business. It's really exciting. At least I think it is, and hopefully you will as well at the end. And so it just kind of keeps me on track. So I'd say listen more to what we're talking about. And at the end, if you don't remember anything else, I would hope that you remember one thing. And our conversation today will be about developing a relationship with the customer. And hopefully that customer is, in fact, a customer, not just a consumer, because that's really what we try to accomplish in our work. And I'm going to give you the nuggets with which the DNA was built by Mark Vadan when he founded the company back in 1999. So the first slide, I'm actually going to read this quote. And what's really interesting about this is when I came to Blue Nile, I spent the first 6 months really just learning about the business. I wasn't a jeweler. I'm not an expert by any means in the internet category, e-commerce. I spent most of my time really in brick and mortar, but I traveled over a couple times, and I've become much more oriented and capable in the internet world. But one of the things that I find most compelling about Blue Nile, and it was also similar in Moose Jaw, and what I think is really exciting is the ability to create a relationship with the customers. And when I got to Blue Nile, we did our typical IR presentations, and we meet with investors and go to the typical presentation formats that we have to present at. And we had what I believe was somewhat of a sterile deck, and our CFO said it's really important that we present the financials. And I said, yes, I think so too. But I think equally important, maybe even more important, is why would an investor want to really invest in Blue Nile over the long haul? And I think the answer is because we have a customer that's a huge advocate for the experience they have on our site and with our business model. And they're advocates because of the experience that we create. So these pictures are actually pictures that customers who got married or engaged actually uploaded to an email. Then they went on to write us a note, and then they went on to send us that email. And I don't know about you, but most of our customers are millennials, and they multitask it at an incredible level. But what they don't really do is take time to give feedback. And here we have customers that are doing all these things. They're uploading pictures. They're sending us emails. This quote, "There is nothing more than Blue Nile could possibly do to improve its website or impeccable service. It's already top tier. If others would learn from Blue Nile, the world would be a better place to shop." That is worth just an incredible amount of money that you couldn't buy. And that's why we start our investor deck, because it really gives the investor a belief that there's something here, which is part and parcel to what I opened with, union and lifelong celebration, one couple at a time. Our belief is that Blue Nile historically started as an engagement retailer, and I'll tell you a little bit about the story about why we became a company and Mark Vadan's experience that really started the whole basis of our business. But it's this concept of union and lifelong celebration that gives us the bandwidth to take a customer from getting married to getting not just engaged, but a 5-year anniversary and a 25-year anniversary and bat mitzvah gifts and all the things that a great jewelry store would sell. And we do it one couple at a time because we actually try to create a compelling experience with each couple that comes to us. So let's talk a little bit about the background of the company. We were founded in 1999, and Mark Vadan, who was our founder, had an experience. He was a Bain consultant at the time. He was looking to get engaged, and he went to a retail store. He went to a number of retail stores, but he went to one very specific retailer, which I won't mention, but it's one you would all know well. And he ultimately started to interact with them at the counter and try to learn, and he was a Bain consultant. He's an incredible intellect. He's very smart, but he really wants to know more about what he's doing and what he's buying. And in this case, he spent a lot of time doing research, like most of our customers today, do, which are millennials, and they're just so much more informed about getting engaged and the qualities of a diamond and the 4 C's. And Mark was informed back then. He had done his research. And so ultimately he went to the counter, he had an experience, and most of you probably don't know Mark, but he walks around in shorts and flip-flops, he's half shaven, he has long hair, and I think ultimately he thought they were either patronizing him or didn't think he could afford to buy the ring he was looking at. But he looked at 2 rings, very similar in cut and quality. One was $5,000 more than the other. And so he asked, what makes one $5,000 worth more than the other? And the associate at the counter basically said, just look at the stones, and whichever one speaks to you is the one that's right for you. And he was somewhat astonished by that, because he really wanted to know what the quality of the stone was. So ultimately he came back to Seattle. There was a company called Internet Diamonds, a really small sole proprietor in Tacoma, south of Seattle. He somehow managed to understand they were in business. He found the location. They actually had a store, but they did internet business. And ultimately, he had such a compelling experience with that proprietor in terms of all the elements of what makes a great diamond. He asked the gentleman if he could actually buy into the business. And they became partners for about 3 years. But basically, the foundation of Blue Nile was taking the opaque industry that it had become, and in many respects still is today, and create a transparent relationship with the customer. We talk about education, counsel, and guidance, and that's our DNA. Ultimately, the reality is we also sell at 20 to 40% below typical jewelry stores, traditional jewelry stores, because of some of the things I'll talk about. But more importantly, that's the icing on the cake. What we really value is the ability to interact with consumers, educate them, literally educate them if there's nothing else, and then hopefully provide counsel and guidance, and ultimately, hopefully, help them understand that we're the place to buy. We demystified, for lack of a better way to say, the industry. We created a fair amount of disruption. I still go to jewelry shows, and unfortunately, occasionally, I'm asked to turn my badge around because some of us still look at us like the 3-headed monster, but we're actually becoming much more integrated into the industry. We're clearly a force of being, if you will, and the customer really our model really resonates in many respects with many customers. Fundamentally, we have a different cost structure, right? We have no brick and mortar stores. We have no salespeople. We work on a completely different markup structure. We actually have no working capital to speak of. Well, we do have working capital. When I talk about our supply chain, you'll understand the dynamics. It allows us to actually have a fundamentally different cost structure. And what we do is we pass it on to the consumer. We work, our margin structure is around 19 points. The typical margin in the jewelry business, you could quote a number 39, 49, or 59. Any of those numbers are real numbers in comparison to our 19% margin rate. And we ultimately satisfy the customer with value and satisfy the investors with profitability. We have an innovative supply chain, which I'll talk about, but ultimately creates a superior position in the market because it allows us to bring this value to the consumer, and value not defined as price, but value defined as service and experience, and we invest to create that service and experience. That's part of the reason our margins are lower. And then ultimately, we give the customer incredible value. We have the world's largest selection. We aggregate the world's largest selection of certified stones. So GIA, the Gemological Institute of America, is a third-party validation firm, if you will, for the quality of a stone. We aggregate $1.3 billion of inventory, about 140,000 stones at any given point. And I'll talk a little bit more about that. But that is an incredible level of quality of certified stones. And it's very hard for a retailer to actually bring that all together. Our Net Promoter Score is a testament to the experience we create. So most of you, I'm sure, are familiar with Net Promoter Score. Our Net Promoter Score, which I'll talk about a little bit more later, but the short story is it's typically in the mid-80s. In my time here, we've hit a peak of 88. And it's just a great level of demonstration of advocacy for the brand. And I'll talk about why that's so important in a second. And then last but not least, what we're trying to ultimately do is take this model and go internationally. We do about 17% of our business internationally, and we're trying to take that both internationally as well as expand that experience mobily across, if you will, device-agnostic platforms. So the supply chain. What's important about the supply chain? It's incredible what Mark helped define in terms of the model and why it's fundamentally different, because we don't own any of the diamond inventory. When we first went out, he managed to convince suppliers to list their stone on Blue Nile. And they literally list it, we put it on our site, and we basically show it to the customer. And over the course of time, we've aggregated more and more stones. When I first got there, we had about 60,000 stones on our site. Today, as I mentioned, we have about 140,000 stones, about $1.3 billion in inventory. And what's really cool about that is at the very beginning, Mark convinced those dealers, which are really polished traders, to put them on our website and to offer them to us exclusively. So we now offer them to customers exclusively. No one else in the world can bring that inventory to the customer in a direct-to-consumer environment. So, and they contractually obligate themselves to us to do that. And so those stones are only available through Blue Nile direct to the consumer. Those stones we look at about 25% of the world's polished inventory. We actually only list on our site about 15% of the inventory in the world of certified stones because 10% doesn't actually meet our quality requirements, even though they're certified. But it's pretty amazing if you think about that. 15% of the world's GIA polished stones on Blue Nile's website. A little company in Seattle, 15 years old, having $1.3 billion of inventory. It's pretty defendable in many respects. And the reason vendors continue to want to list with us is because if you're number 20 on our website, you won't even be number 1 on anybody else's, but you won't be number 1 or 2 or 3. The reality is you just won't do a lot of business. And it's not like you won't do any business, but the fact of the matter is we just move so much more inventory. In reality, we have 50% of the U.S. online market share for engagement. We have about 5% of the entire market share in the U.S. for engagement. And worldwide, we are the largest engagement retailer online. So it's pretty compelling for a vendor to list with us. The other thing, which is ultimately why the consumers love it, is the fact of the matter is we kind of have a reverse auction, right? Vendors list on our site. We have technology that allows them to see their stone, to understand how fast it's turning, and ultimately they can lower their price to be more competitive with some other stone on our website. And because we operate in a positive way, kind of like Costco, we have a kind of a definitive margin structure, which we don't let our inventory creep up above. When that vendor lowers the price, the customer gets a better deal. And if the vendor wants to turn the stone, they have to lower the price to be more competitive against the next vendor. So the customer ultimately wins, and we're facilitating that for the consumer. So it's really neat, as it's noted here, it's a reverse auction, and we're really excited because it ultimately brings more transparency to the marketplace, right? We're kind of a trading center. Our diamonds are typically shipped to the customer within 3 days, but equally cool, and I'll talk about it in a second a little bit more, we have a build-your-own program, and we have diamond inventory that's in Seattle as much as in the vaults worldwide, but those diamonds that are in Seattle, you can order up till 3 o'clock Eastern Standard Time a diamond engagement ring. You can pick the setting. You can pick the metal. You can pick the diamond itself. And those diamonds that are in our vault in Seattle, you can have delivered to your door in the size ring you need by 10 a.m. the next morning. Pretty incredible. And what it's hard to believe, but I sit on calls. I think really understanding the customer experience is critical. So I sit on calls every other week for a couple hours. And it's hard to believe, but I can't tell you how many guys say, I need to get engaged. And oh, by the way, I'm trying to do it this weekend and it's Wednesday or Thursday. It's just crazy. The fact of the matter is, one of the cool things about us is you can get that done that fast. And 3 days is the typical time. Our worst scenario is typically about 7 days. And everything that we sell is returnable. So barring a special order. So if you want a special order, which we do that too, which typically takes 4 to 6 weeks for something truly special, but most of our business is build your own, and it gives you the ability to define the metal, define the shank, the setting, the diamond, and we custom build that, and there's an element that's really customized in that regard. And we ship FedEx overnight. So let's talk about the DNA and why I said that we create this experience with the customers. We value education, counsel, and guidance. And Mark believed that if we could educate consumers to be smarter, they'd make better decisions. And through that process, then we try to counsel them about what a better decision looks like. So actually, in our call center, it's hard to believe, but we like people to call in. As an internet company, we like people to pick up the phone and call us. We actually think we talk to every single customer getting married each year at some point, even if they're not a customer in reality, because our website and our agents, if you will, they're called diamond jewelry consultants, are so well informed, and the education we have on our website is so powerful that they come just to get educated. And if nothing else, we love that awareness because it builds. And I'll talk a little bit about that experience and how it builds and go back to Net Promoter Score and why it's so relevant. But ultimately, we like customers to call in. Ultimately, when they call in, we downsell them as much as we upsell them. So I'm going to talk about that for a second because it's a really powerful part of the experience. So when I say we downsell them, customer calls up, men typically have a budget, and our actual average value of an engagement setting is about $7,000. The US average is about $3,000. So a customer calls up and says, I have $7,000 I want to spend. I want X size carrot. I think I want eye clarity and color and what have you. And we help them then navigate, right? We say, well, why do you want this? And why do you want that? And well, I really want a 1.0 carrot. And so like one of the things, a term in the industry is a cheater, right? Cheater. A cheater is, well, it's almost a carrot, but it's 0.98. And if it's 0.98, it actually doesn't hit the gate post, for lack of a better way to say it, of what a 1 carat stone costs. So we can help that customer choose, do you really want a 1 carat stone? Or would you like an internally flawless stone, or a near internally flawless stone? Or things like fluorescence, which most of you probably don't know what that is. But fluorescence goes from none to high, and it's a level of blue in the stone. And typically it's not visible to the naked eye. Literally, so medium fluorescence, you would never know you had a fluorescent stone. But if a customer wants a bigger stone and wants to really get her something special, and they thought they wanted no fluorescence, we can help them understand that medium fluorescence will never be seen, and you can go from a 1.0 up to something more meaningful. And we help them navigate in that way. And that's the kind of downselling we do as opposed to upselling. So that experience is really powerful. We have an app. We were the first jewelry store, I think, in the world, certainly in the States, to create a jewelry app. And we love the fact when the customers take that app to the store that they're being educated. So they're in one of our competitors, a brick and mortar store, and they're trying to understand more, and the sales associate is not quite as knowledgeable, and they pull out our app, and they start looking at what the customer's talking about, and they try to educate themselves real time. The ultimate goal is for them to then get a price from that customer, from that sales associate, and then quickly search on our diamond search on our app and see that, oh my God, I can spend 25 or 35 or 45% less and come to us. And they have the trust and confidence to do that because of the return policy and the fact that our stones are certified. So that's why we put so much energy into this. And I haven't really talked, although I mentioned the price just now on the app. The reality is the icing on the cake is the price. Because what we really want to do is create a customer for life, and that's our opportunity to evolve the experience, which is most valuable to us, not the single sale. Here's another quote, and the quotes I think are just so incredible. Unlike the people in the Diamond District, and in this case they're referring to 47th Street in New York, your representatives never push me in one direction or another. I hereby say to all those who may be interested in buying a diamond, check out BlueNile.com. These are the kind of feedback notes we get. Occasionally, not very often, but occasionally we get one that's not as powerful, and we jump on that like white on rice. It's really important for us, and we'll move heaven and earth to do whatever it takes to satisfy our customer. And again, I'll circle back to why that's so important in a second. So we have this slogan, go on, compare, shop industry-leading and mobile tools. Industry-leading apparatus, devices, and mobile tools. So we launched the app that I talked about in 2010. We launched this year responsive design. And responsive design is an element in what we're bringing to the customer, the ability to see, touch, and feel the same experience no matter what device you come to us on. So we think it's really important that the power and rich features and benefits on the PC are brought to the customer no matter where they are. I think the question was asked by Terry Lundgren about how many people sleep with their phone. The reality is you get up in the morning, you look at your phone, then you typically, if you're in New York, you might ride the train. If you're in Seattle, you might ride the bus. You get to your office, you get on your PC, you get home and you sit with your fiancé-to-be and you pull out your tablet and you ultimately start shopping again. And so the customer needs to have that same experience no matter what device they come to us on. And so we launched responsive design, which basically adjusts the experience for the size of the device. And while we're not fully through that process, it's creating a richer dynamic for the customer to interact with the brand. The other thing which I talk about a lot, I talked about my 2 kids. I have 2 kids out of college. They're both in their 20s, and my daughter, last one's 18. And they grew up with the iPhone as their PC. I watch my 18-year-old daughter talking to someone, and she's talking to me, and she's typing, and I have no idea how she could possibly be correctly typing on an iPhone. And it's just mesmerizing to me. But that's the life of a millennial customer. And our customer, average customer getting engaged is 29 years old. He typically makes over $100,000 a year. Over 70% of our customers make over $100,000. Over 80% of our customers have a 4-year degree or a master's. They're tech geeks, they're software geeks, they're on Wall Street, and they're young, affluent millennial customers that grew up on an iPhone. And we are very penetrated in the iPhone as opposed to the Android, although we do obviously have Android customers. We're a very customer, iPhone and everything else that goes with the Apple experience. I won't read this quote, but you can get a sense of these quotes. They're really powerful, and we really love the fact that consumers take the time to write them to us. I talked a little bit about customization and service, right? So customization. We have 150, 140,000 stones. You can get on our website. You can search any way you want. You can do advanced search. You can do minimum search. But ultimately, we will give you a listing from low to high in whatever ranking format you want. It's incredibly rich, incredibly powerful. And the fact of the matter is every stone we sell, you can return. Every stone we sell is certified. So you know what you're getting, and we've built, after 15 years, just a level of trust and confidence in the customer having an experience with us that's powerful. The other thing, and I talked about Net Promoter Score, and now I'll drive a little bit deeper into it, because when a customer is buying, one of the favorite things I'm often asked by anyone that I present to is, well, don't customers really struggle to buy online? And the fact of the matter is, yes, they do, but they're doing it less and less. About 10%, little less than 10% of the jewelry business is done in an online experience. It's much less than apparel, much less than where the overall penetration of internet is today. But because there's less, and it's inherently part of the jewelry business, right? And not everyone's comfortable buying an engagement setting online. But the fact of the matter is, as our customers now become more into that marrying age, the millennials from 15 to 30, average customer buying from us 29, they're more and more comfortable. And the number one way by like 75% of customers saying that how I decide where to go buy is through friends and family. So we invest all of our money in experience, all our money in the rosewood box that it comes in, all our money in the multiple levels of touch points and emails and follow-up, all of our money in asking for feedback on your experience, because that creates that Net Promoter Score. And that Promoter Score is so valuable because it creates advocacy for the brand. And advocacy for the brand means that we'll become bigger and bigger, and it's like a flywheel, right? It just keeps turning and turns faster and faster. And that is what we're trying to accomplish instead of big brand campaigns. We're very publicly, we're a public company. Our advertising is between 5 and 6% of our sales. It's pretty skinny, relatively speaking. It's grown from 3 or 4%. So we're investing more as we launch things like Monique Lillier, which is an exclusive designer launched by Blue Nile about 18, 24 months ago. And it's something we've done to create some level of awareness for Monique Lillier, which was a great brand launch. But the fact of the matter is most of our marketing spend is either digital marketing or it's in customer service. And that is allowing the customer to then come to us and actually build a ring on our site and have a great experience. Talk a little bit about how he shops and how she shops, because it's distinctly different. He shops around really making a great purchase decision, guided and educated, respected, confidence. He values value. He doesn't want to be pressured. None of our sales associates are commissioned. They don't work on commission. They work on helping the customer make the best decision. She shops to dream and explore and have something on her finger for the next 50 years. And she values the fact that he's putting so much energy and time into that process. So let's talk about social for a sec. Social is something that is a perfect example of when we talk about creating a relationship with the customer, it's all about the relationship and not about fan count. On Facebook, we probably have, I think the last number I saw, a little over 700,000 fans. We're probably number 3 or 4 in pure fan count, but we are literally number 1 in interaction. And we measure interaction by the number of comments, likes, or shares made on postings. So it's an index that says what's the level of interaction with the brand. So you can post all day long, but if no one cares, no one cares. When someone comments on your post, when someone likes your post, or when someone shares your post, it creates an index of interaction. We have 50% of our fan count interacting with our postings all the time. The nearest competitor is 40% of that index level. Pinterest, we are literally the number 1 jeweler in the world on Pinterest. And when we typically have something happening on Pinterest, it's reposted 50 or 60 or 70,000 times. The one I most remember was Mother's Day, where we had an event and there was 50,000 repins within like days. It was really incredible, and it shows the level of interaction with the brand. And mind you, these are all typically women, but what's really cool is, and I know you can't see it, but that very bottom one is Hunter. He's a guy, and most guys don't do this stuff, but he's a guy, and he said on a scale of 1 to 10, I'd give 100 for a perfect ring for my fiance. Thank you. And he tweeted that. That's really powerful. This is my favorite quote, and so it's here in all its glory for you to read. And I won't really read it to you, but it's a perfect example of the level of interaction we get with the brand. And in this case, he actually named a competitor, and I'm okay putting it up there because they're an incredible brand. They just have a different model than we do, but they're an incredible brand. But this really talks to, all the exclamation points and the wow and the experience that he said hands down is on par with the best. And that's what we're trying to create. And we're trying to now extend that further beyond the engagement business into jewelry. So in wrapping up the brand pyramid, right? The mission is to bring incredible quality, incredible value, and a compelling experience to customers in the jewelry category. He shops kind of more by attributes, kind of facts. What's the quality of the stone? What's the price? How fast can I get it? She shops by dreaming. She shops by wanting to show off to her friends. She shops by sharing all the different options in engagement. And ultimately, they meet in the middle where that wheel is and have benefits that are peace of mind, empowerment through the build your own process, partnership, lasting fairness, and personal expression through the customization process. Last but not least, I just want to close off on international because what our hope is, and we are doing business international. We have offices in Dublin. We have 2 offices in Shanghai. We have our own call centers because we value so much the experience we're creating. So we have our call center in Shanghai. We have our call center in Dublin. And we do fulfillment in both of those locations as well. So the bottom picture is the Shanghai Bund. Our website is currently in 6 languages, soon to be 7. Our agents talk in, I think the last count I had was 11 languages. Don't quote me on that. But we are worldwide. I was in Shanghai 2.5 weeks ago. One of our agents just returned from St. Petersburg where she finished her education. She speaks Russian. Another one spoke French. Another one spoke Spanish. In our office in Seattle, we have all those languages plus Japanese, German. It's really incredible. And last but not least, the wedding show. This is a perfect example of the power of building a brand and awareness and experience, right? So before we entered Shanghai, we did a little research, and we are the 7th most known engagement brand or jeweler in China. And we hadn't even set foot in the country. Today, we think we're about number 3, but we haven't done any primary research to validate that. But ultimately, we went to a wedding show. We're starting to bring the brand to life there. We do about 50% of our international business in Asia Pacific today, and it was only 30% a short period of time ago. We talk about China becoming a $100 million country for us. And so we've done these wedding shows, and it's like Macy's at Thanksgiving. I actually say that. I went to the wedding show in March 9th and 10th in Shanghai. 60,000 people came into this convention center, and all they want to do is get married. All they want to do is get married. They come in to buy an engagement ring, and when I say buy an engagement ring, the coolest thing, and I should have shown a picture, is the guy who brought in a bag of money. Literally brought in a bag of money. Credit is still not as rampant as you might expect, so another sale that we made, and we sell them, but we ship them after we make them. Another sale we made, a guy came in with his fiance. They spent 3 hours, and after 3 hours, they found a ring. They went to buy it. He pulled out his credit card. He didn't have enough. He went to his car. He got a second credit card, came back, still didn't have enough credit. He waited an hour for his mom to bring the 3rd credit card. It's just a different experience, but we had 60,000 people in this convention center, all looking to get married. Bless you. Pick a hotel, pick a caterer, pick the chocolate for the wedding, and all they want to do is put their wedding together. And so that is the power of what we create. And as you can see here, although I didn't show you the other pictures, it's a consultative experience. So we have chairs and tables, and the booth has a lot of freedom. And every other, literally, I'm no exaggeration, every other retailer that was there selling, it was like McDonald's on a counter. Totally different experience. It's just basically a line. It's like a bookie line. And no disrespect to those retailers, because really great retailers, just a different model. And we're bringing to China the model that is really resonating with the customers. So that is the end, and I thank you for the time. And I think we have 7 minutes left for questions, something like that. There we go. Okay, so. The light is really hard. Now I can relate to that. Any questions? Yes.
Do you have a challenge capturing that consumer that failed to be in the market one time?
Yeah, the question was, do we have a challenge capturing the consumer that may only be in the market one time? Actually, a lot of what we're doing, it's just interesting. I characterize Blue Nile's first 13 years in business as being a technology-driven company, applying its technology in the retail business. And today, we characterize our company being a retailer, using technology to further enable the experience. And so we've done things like we launched Band Matcher, which is visualization of a wedding band that goes with an engagement setting. And then we launched Fiancé Email Capture. So when he interacts with us, we send him an email and said, would you be willing to give us your fiance's email and tell us after you're engaged? We want to reach out to her. And then we do lifecycle marketing, which is really compelling. So we actually are out there now mining email addresses because our email file is the richest way to interact with our customer and to spread the love, so to speak.
That's great.
Yep. Yeah, great questions. Sales tax. You know, the reality is we're astute and we recognize the government is at some point probably going to figure out what they want to do. And we continue to plan for that, thinking it's going to happen. But the fact of the matter is we're 20 to 40% below traditional brick and mortar jewelry stores today. And that's before sales tax. So when you add sales tax, it's even a bigger difference. The second question. The return rate, that's right. We talk pretty publicly about our return rate is less than 10%. It's single digits. What's really incredible is the engagement return rate is almost innocuous. Guys spend so much time researching, they really do, that they don't have the need to return very often. So it's points. And I used to be an apparel buyer, and so 20 and 30% return rates is what you would expect. But even our fashion business, with this very low level of engagement returns, even our fashion business allows us to still be below 10% in total. Yep, I see a question back there.
My question is that we know that 83% of jewelry is still sold through independent jewelers. So the question is, how are you going out against that market? So you're getting and raising awareness with the millennials and the like, but how are you going to get that personalized in-person experience where people are still going to that independent jeweler?
It's a great question, and quite honestly, we're testing something. Some of you may know we're in Nordstrom's. We have 2 web rooming concepts in Nordstrom's. That's a term out there these days. Instead of showroom, web rooming. And we have 2 boutiques. We're in Roosevelt Field. We're in the downtown Nordstrom store in Seattle. And one of the biggest challenges, probably actually in reality, the single biggest challenge customers tell us, is I can't literally see it, touch it, feel it. And so we're test driving that. We don't put inventory in the store, but we have our own sales associates putting that ring on someone's finger. We've actually had one proposal at the counter. Pretty cool. But ultimately, we're trying to test drive different ways to interact with the customer. And we don't want to literally have brick and mortar stores because fundamentally our model is different. But the ability to have a setting in the store and facilitate a transaction, we're test driving that to see if it'll resonate. Yes.
So hi, I'm back here.
Oh,
hello.
Wherever.
So my husband is a very loyal, I'm over here, this way.
Oh, there you go. So sorry, it's very bright.
Very loyal customer 8 years ago, bought the engagement ring, then went back for the wedding ring.
This isn't going to be a bad story, is it?
No,
Okay,
went
good.
back for the first baby ring.
Because I was about ready to get off.
And then, went back for all the Mother's Day things. So we love the brand. We love the website, fantastic customer service. My question to you is, why do you think it's so hard for other retailers to duplicate that same kind of experience?
Yeah, well, there's a couple just fundamentally different parts of our business that are hard to replicate, right? If you're a brick and mortar store, you have to manage the price difference, and that just is unacceptable to customers today. And so you have to deal with the expense structure, and we just don't have it. One of our favorite numbers is we do about $1.8 million per associate, and a competitor, which I won't name, but is one of the leading competitors, a great retailer, they do about $350 per associate, $350,000 per associate. So we just really can leverage the expense structure of our company. We're incredibly lean. We have 100 people in our corporate office. Most of our staff are either bench jewelers, gemologists, or call center folks. And then the other element that I think is real is when I say we have $1.3 billion of inventory and 130,000, 140,000 stones that are contractually obligated exclusively to us, that's 15 years of development and vendors really believing that we are the retailer to work with. A lot of vendors actually get on our website and, I would say from our standpoint, a great great perspective. They ultimately have kind of folded and said, we'll help you find the right stone, and then they'll make money on the setting. And so that's, where they're living. And honestly, we believe our share of market is probably growing the most, unfortunately, out of the smaller business units, because it's harder and harder to compete. If you think about mobile, what we're investing in mobile and capital to bring the experience is very difficult for an individual proprietor to compete with. I think we're probably getting close on time.
I've been to your website several times. The engagement and education factor is impressive. I have a question about the returns. Within the 10%, what percentage is fraud, and how do you handle it?
We actually have an ex-FBI director that leads our LP team. And as you might imagine, we are incredibly oriented around LP. We have cameras everywhere. When we send the box out, when we bring the box back, we actually keep trash for 6 months so that if anything went in a trash, we number it, we know where it goes. And we have the only challenges we have occasionally is really smart fraudsters, for lack of a better way to say it, in the shipping process. And we self-insure. It's so innocuous. It's not a big deal. But when it hits us, occasionally in a purple moon it does, it definitely hurts because we self-insure. But the reality is it's pretty small, and that's why we self-insure. Back there was a couple questions.
Yes, you had talked about the customer experience, not only being able to customize, but also be able to return. That's our favorite topic, returns. How do you manage that inventory coming back in if it's customized? Are you guys deconstructing? Do you charge back to your vendors?
Yeah, when they bring it back to us, we just literally unmount the diamond. If the metal is not literally reusable, we just melt it. And if it is reusable, we just put it back in stock. The fact of the matter, a shank, which is the core of the ring, and the basket is on top where the diamond goes. The shank can just be repolished if there's scratches, but a customer pretty quickly returns it. So it's not used and abused and what have you.
Thank you.
One more? One more. Okay. Yes, back there, I guess. I saw too many hands, but yours, and we'll call it a day.
What sorts of trends are you seeing with millennials and marriage that's changing, like ages and demographics? And
slightly older. Definitely for our customer, more astute. Our customer's definitely done a lot of research. I wasn't kidding about things like fluorescence and girdle, which is the side of the diamond. They do a lot of research, a lot more. I've been married almost 30 years, and the story I tell is when I got married, I brought my wife home from my family jeweler, 10 different stones, said, which one do you like? Let's get married. It's a totally different environment today, just totally different. Their orientation towards the iPhone and the tablet is incredible. Our biggest sale that I recall just off the top of my head in May of last year, $226,000 sale on a tablet for an engagement setting, and $200,000 for an iPhone sale for an engagement ring. So just like my kids, they're just so much more comfortable in a mobile environment, and over 50% of our traffic comes to us from a mobile experience. So it's just a totally different environment. 15 years ago, you were struggling to buy online. Today, you're comfortable buying $225,000 engagement settings on a phone. Anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate your time.